What's going on, team? How we doing out there? Sorry that I'm a couple minutes late. Getting ready for the Netflix earnings. That's going to be coming out after 4 p.m. Of course, don't miss all our coverage right here on Benzinga. Starting at 5 p.m. Eastern, we're going to get into the action. We'll take a look into the earnings. We'll take a look at the growth drivers for Netflix. What is working for them? What is not working for them? Where do we see potentially that they can really kind of find some revenue, right? We'll talk all about that coming up at 5 p.m. Let's get into the action. Let's take a look at the markets. It is at the close. I want to go ahead and take a look at all the action from today. Of course, the SPY right now towards 391 acting as resistance. We'll look to see if we can actually hold up here. Of course, from the downturn of yesterday, not looking too bad. Looks like we might actually get here back above the opening price, open at 390.22, right? We're at 390.06. Can we get back there? We'll have to wait and find out. We'll look to see if we can get towards at least above the opening price here. Let's get into the action. Check out what was moving today on At the Close. Let's get right to it.
All right, it is time for pre-market prep at the close.
3 consecutive highs, opened, matched yesterday's low, and then once it took out there, that's all the breakout momentum traders needed.
All right, let's get into the action. Of course, Joel is still missing. He is on vacation, and he'll be back next week. So don't miss that, team. We'll see what happens there. Let's get towards the action. You guys, if you guys see a stock, call it out. I see you guys calling out my man Chaikin. We'll take a look at it. And like always, Tanner bringing the line. If you ain't fading, you ain't trading. Let's get into the action. And there it is, RJ. I don't really care too much for the intro, really. Don't really need it. But let's get towards the action today. Let's see what was up today. Energy having a decent day today, bouncing back around 12 o'clock. We did get that little spike right back up there. So you guys see XOM now towards 111. Can it get back there towards the 114? It's rejected that a couple of times now. We'll look to see if we can get back up there. Oxy also starting to try to push there. There's a couple of daily highs that we need to start watching. Will we get back above like 6650s? Getting into that area, 66.58. You could see it here. And then if we clear that, we'll look to see if we can get above 67 on Oxy. There's a lot of kind of resistance that's been playing around that 66. If we can plus through there, we'll look to see if we can get the lift. Valero's been a very strong stock in oil. Of course, this is more of a diesel play. We've been talking about that since the stock was down here. It did do a nice little push. Actually, we've been talking about Valero since over here, since the 1025. But we're going to look for that continued push here. Did find the dip buyers today, right back up there towards 139. So if you're looking into energy, well, that's remaining bullish. And I think comments from Jamie Dimon, right? Didn't make it worse, right? He stated that he thought that oil gas prices were probably going up for the next 10 years. I don't know how that's going to play an effect, but let's take a look also. How is crude doing on the day? You can see we spiked back up there towards 81.16 around kind of midday. We're back into the 80s. I talked about it this morning on pre-market prep. Would we get back towards the 80? I know Valero has been a monster, Shannon, and that's one that we've been looking at for a while for the diesel outlook. It's continued the strength. I was looking to see if Halliburton was going to be able to recover 40s. Looks like we're holding there right now. SLB looking a little bit better. Slumber J getting a lift. You guys know these were the two that I was calling out for the beginning of the year that I'm looking in oil. That's Halliburton and Slumber J. We'll look to see if those can continue having a nice push. But Valero, definitely a good push there. We did get comments, of course, Fed talk out there. Federal Reserve Governor Brainerd said on Thursday that interest rates need to remain high, even though that there's signs of inflation starting to ease. No way, right, guys? Well, I think we all kind of understand that interest rates are going to be prolonged higher. I know that a lot of people think that we're going to pivot really quickly, but I don't really see that happening. She also stated that even with the recent moderations, inflation remains high. Policy will need to be sufficiently restrictive for some time to make sure that inflation returns to the 2% on a sustained basis. So that's another thing that's added here. I've always heard about the returning to 2%. One thing that I think is important to note in this comment is on a sustained basis. What does that mean necessarily? That means that we get multiple readings maybe of 2%, or at least a report that actually shows us that we're going towards that 2% and staying there. That's what I think the Fed's really truly going to have to see. If the labor market can stay strong today, initial jobless claims coming in at 190,000 versus the 214,000, we need to be seeing this number spike and spike if we're actually going to go ahead and go into the pivot. Yes, pause seems like it's more likely towards March, April time, right? But the pivot, it's still far. And I think mentions like this, sustained basis, that just goes to show us that we do want to get to that 2%. And if the Fed has to continue to raise rates or just pause for longer, a prolonged period of time to get that inflation down to 2%, it seems like that's what they're intending to do. At least that's the message that they're giving us. All right, let's get out of the Fed talk. Don't want to talk about the Fed all show. Let's get into the action. Let's take a look at what else is making a move. And of course, if you guys got stocks that had a nice little move, throw it up in the chat. SLB got the earnings report. Definitely, when that earnings report started, it definitely got the lift on SLB. And it's continued since then. That was like this first gap here. And I was looking for the push. It's continued. Got the dip today. We'll look to see if this can keep battling. All right, let's get into the action. Let's go first to our leadership. I know Joel would kind of kill me if I didn't start off our leadership. So let's do it right, team. Let's start off with Apple. Apple closing the day up about, right now it's about 36 cents. It's up on the day. We'll look to see on the 15-minute chart here. Where are we heading, right? Well, it looks like we got finally back above that 135. I thought we would reject here from kind of prior resistance around the 135.21 level. That was right about here. And it got up there multiple times, came back down, but then finally pushing up there towards the 136. We'll look to see if we can actually close back above this trend line. Closing above that trend line, yeah, you can get in a bullish trend. But if we reject, come right back down, let's say through Wednesday's low, 133.50s, cut through there, I think we get closer towards that 125. Microsoft down on the day. That doesn't look good. Of course, we saw this one really give up yesterday after climbing the wall of worry on Tuesday. We'll see what happens on this one. 234 rejecting. You could see the resistance here, or just go to the hourly. Hourly will make it a little bit cleaner, right? Around the 234.50 area was acting as resistance. We went right close towards that 234.40s. We'll look to see if we reject that right back down. Amazon still in the red and still kind of pulling back. It's kind of a little bit of a measured pullback. We'll look to see if the buy the dippers come in Amazon around the 92s, 93s, 50% retracement. Something to keep in mind. We'll see what happens there in Amazon. Google, of course, was strong on the day. So if you wanted to see something that's going against the market, relative strength, right? Well, look how Google is doing today. That's not doing bad. And I could see that one right out the gates here on live trading, how this one was just remaining strong. It did do a nice little push. So not a bad move there in Alphabet if you guys were able to catch that one. Let's go to the Tesla Dragon. Tesla Dragon rejecting that break back above the 130s. It looked like we were going to have at least not too bad of a day, maybe get back there towards 131. Now it's looking like we might actually cut through this 126.60s. We'll see what happens towards the close. Do we cut right back through that 126.60s? That's not what I would be wanting to see, especially a close closer towards 125 on Tesla. Can leave room to fill in this gap right back down into the 123 area. We'll see what happens there on Tesla. Can it hold the 123s? Will it make that 150 run, or will we be right back closer towards the 115? Something to keep in mind. We'll see what happens. All right, Tesla's enough on Tesla. Let's get towards the action of today. Of course, we wanted to take a look how the value trade was doing, right? How did that do today? Let's go to Procter & Gamble on that since they had earnings. You can see here, we did get a little bit of a bounce back in the intraday, but now starting to fade off. Let's go to KHC, another one. Kraft Heinz Company getting a little bit of a bounce in the intraday action, now starting to fade off. We'll see what happens if these can cut through the daily lows. Of course, if they can start climbing back, it won't be looking too bad. If we crack through Wednesday's low, 39.50s, definitely you got to be careful with these as you start to see them go. Going to take a look at what else is making moves. Of course, energy, healthcare into the green. Pretty much, it wasn't that much into the green today. You got communication services, basic materials, just slightly into the green. Gold having a good day there. Silver having a decent day. So gold names continuing there. We'll take a look to see copper with a little bit of a bounce back today. Keeping my eye close on SCCO and FCX. You guys can see this has remained strong. Copper was in the news for a while looking into this year that it was going to have a lift. It's gotten a pretty decent lift overall since October. If you look at that kind of from the lows on FCX, you're talking about a 68% move. So copper has been strong. We've got to keep an eye on it. King's bringing up an interesting area. Let's go towards it. First Solar, today I was watching. Was it going to hold around this 172.68? I was even thinking about maybe taking a short off of that level because it's on the daily, right? It needed to hold up there, the top of the range there, if it was just going to come right back towards the 190. Did a hard pullback today to 165, team. This one was a good opportunity. You can see here, it kind of stopped around that 172.68, going towards 172.58, and then finally cutting through that, then using it kind of as resistance here. Now starting to cut down. We'll see what happens on this solar play. EMPH shows me it often, right? And so you guys see there, it was trying to make its way back there towards the highs. Hard rejection now. We could start seeing this fall off the tape, right? You can see it in Sunrun. You can see it in SEDG, right? Solar Edge. Really starting to come off the tape. This could really start coming down fast. First Solar, will this start to break the trend after the recent run that it had in early January? We'll see what else is going on there for First Solar. She's going down. She's going down. We'll see what happens there. All right, let's keep going. What else is being mentioned in the chats? I bought puts in EMPH. Well, can't go wrong there. Lumen gave back the entire move. We could take a look at that. LUMN, Lumen Technologies, starting to get a little bit of a bounce. Bounce in the beginning of the year, right back down. That's how it can be with these names, right? Let's take a look at the Dash for Trash trade. I saw BBY trying to make a little bit of a lift in the lunch hour. It did get a little bit of a bounce, but very short-lived, right? Look at the open. Quick flush on the downside. We'll see what happens to these Dash for Trash names like Carvana and others. Let's go ahead. We're going to keep going. I'm going to do one or two more stocks, and then I'm going to bring in my man Nick Brown as we'll go ahead and give you the rundown on what's going to happen with Netflix coming up. All right, let's keep going. This one's an interesting one, right? That WBD move. Let's take a look at that, right? We're about to get Netflix. What will happen when we get that Netflix result? Something definitely to keep in mind. Let's go to Warner Brother. I was thinking that this one would probably come right back down after a big rally, right? It was about 50% there from the bottom. If we actually put it to the bottom to the high, that was a 51% move there for Warner Brothers. Is it going to retrace 50% of the move? A lot of times we look for that, right? We'll see if we get that 50% retracement. That'd be all the way back down towards 11.15. Today, pulling back strong, but also coming back towards the open, towards the close. That's something to keep in mind. A move back above 12.50, and we could see a little bit of a lift. Let's go to Netflix, and let's go ahead and bring in my man, Nick Brown. You guys might know him. He sometimes goes on Benzinga Live. What's going on, Nick? How we doing, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's good to definitely have you on. In a few minutes, we'll be getting into Netflix. Of course, that's going to start up at 5 p.m. We will be getting the earnings to come out. Netflix has climbed the wall of worry since the last earnings report. We'll see. Will it be able to get past that wall, right? Will we get back into the April 22, April 19th is when we really kind of came down from there. We closed that day at 348.61. And you can see that was actually on the high end of that day. Followed the next day, opening up down towards 245. Definitely don't want to see that kind of earnings disaster. But we'll see what happens today. It's going to be fun to watch the earnings right after the bell. What do you think about this? Do you think we're going to get a little bit of an up move, down move? You want to take a little bit of a lunch bet?
Well, I don't know, because what Wall Street is expecting, they're expecting 45 cents per share for EPS, according to Refinitiv, revenue 7.85 billion, and then for the expected global paid net subscribers, an addition of 4.57 million subscribers. This is according to Street Account estimates. But Wedbush Wedbush, Morgan Stanley, there's some notes out this morning saying that we think Netflix is poised for significant free cash flow growth in the coming years. Netflix raises their price target on Netflix from 325 to 400. And then Morgan Stanley says the weakening USD lifts 23-24 estimates ahead of consensus, raising their price target. We see ad tier and paid sharing success largely baked into the expectations and valuation. At 50%, at over 50% of revenue, we see leveraging content costs as key to supporting long-term margin expansion and Netflix premium valuation. They're lifting their target from 275 to 300. So a lot of these banks are setting the bar high for Netflix.
Yeah, and I mean, we can take a look here. I usually like to bring up the Benzinga Pro kind of calendar and look at the earnings, right? See how they've been doing in recent reports. Looks like they haven't had some issues in the EPS for some quarters now. This would be leading back towards the pandemic, right? That's when they had that last miss. Revenues seem to be kind of pretty much in line, right? And I think one of the things that we're going to be looking at is, can they surprise again on EPS? You can see here 45, 21%, 24%. That will be what I will be looking at first, right? Seems like revenues have been coming really close to that. So if we can get a surprise there, maybe that can be the lift. Of course, we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on in Netflix on our coverage. That's going to start at 5 p.m. Eastern. You guys will see Nick Brown there. He's ready to go. You guys hear him. He has the information. I'll see you guys a little bit later. Like always, Nick, we'll see you in a little bit. I can't wait to find out what you got for us. And we also got a good interview there, right? Can't go wrong. Michael Pachter? What?
Yes, Michael Pachter of Wedbush. First interview for me. Very excited to talk with him to get his reaction on Netflix earnings and to really break down his note that Wedbush puts out on Netflix that they really put out with with their coverage and why they're raising their price target before the print. Going to find all that out. Tune in at 5 p.m. Starting at 5 p.m. We'll have Michael on at about 5:40, but Mitch and I have a great lineup, great coverage for you to make sure you guys know what is going on with Netflix.
We'll see what happens. And Pumpin' Pal says, you got to take the bet, man. What's up, man? We'll see you in a little bit, Nick. It's good to have you. Excited to give you the opportunity and excited to see the interview. We'll stay tuned. Get you guys over there. 5 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. Nick Brown, myself, and of course, the earnings call after our interview. That's when we'll really start seeing the fireworks. We'll see what kind of comments comes from the CEO. Will they even give us subscribers? They might pull that off, right? Have to find out. All right, Nick, we'll see you in a little bit at 5 p.m. Thank you for joining us. All right, let's get back towards the action. Let's take a look at what stocks are moving towards the close here. We got about 8 minutes left. We'll do a little bit of ticker time. Now we're starting to fade a little bit. Look at the SPY as of late, right? A little bit of a fade towards the close here. We'll look to see if this can actually pick up some steam, right? Do some of these names start leaking out? That's what I'll be looking for. Tesla, how's that doing? It's hanging out right above the VWAP. We'll look to see how this closes. Does it close towards that 126.60s? We'll have to find out. All right, catching up with the chat. Looks like there's some 4 billion to the sell side. Not what we want to see there. We'll see if it starts taking a hit. Netflix is all about the subscriber growth. The only thing, though, if you guys didn't see on their last earnings call, they did talk about how they want to get away from giving subscriber growth numbers. We'll see if they're able to give us that, if they want to continue giving us that. They don't have to give us subscribers numbers. I think that the focus there is that they're shifting closer and closer to profitability focus. So that's why I'm looking at things like earnings per share, right? How is that earnings per share going? We'll find out. All right, last word on Boyle. Let's take a look. How is the natural gas trade? Is that still going lower? Oh, still new lows, team. What do we say? New lows, you gotta go. We'll see what happens there on natural gas. Now down to 978, the UNG, the 1048. We've been talked about the 9 level on that. Will we get back there towards 891, 9 level? We'll look to see if natural gas finally turns around. It hasn't been a great trade by any means. All right, let's get back towards the action. We'll take a look at what stocks are moving here towards the close. You guys got tickers? Throw it up there. If not, I'll just keep running through it here. We can take a look at some of our leadership, right? How's Visa? Visa's still hanging in there. This is one that I'm telling you, team, this is probably one of my favorite charts. I've been talking about this on Stock Market Movers since we first broke through this trend line. Was looking for the throwback to hold. This is still holding in there. I know that today we had Capital One and BFS, right? Discover. Those actually came back a little bit on the day. Look at the Discovery. It did get hit in the pre-market, but man, it climbed that wall of worry right back up there. I like kind of Visa. I like MasterCard. I think these can continue to run. We'll see what happens on these as it's broken a long-term trend line and holding on the pullback. Of course, I don't expect too much more, right? We can maybe get towards around 390 on MasterCard. Wouldn't see let's say 450 into play, but these have been good. All right, I see some other names coming in here. $30 dump on Netflix coming. Ooh, we'll see SRT8. That's definitely an SRT8 type of move. If we get a $30 drop, we'll find out. All right, SQQQ for my day traders. Let me take off my lines here. That looks like a mess, man. You know what we're gonna do to this? Delete it all. Delete it all on the SQQQ. Easy to do that, right? Like just delete it all. Kind of take a look at what we're really looking. You can see here on the weekly, we've had a couple of drives, right? We really haven't taken off, right? Every time that we come back up there towards the 60s, seems like we start turning back around. We'll see what happens now. Let's go to the daily. Daily started pushing. We've had about 2 days. Now we're starting to recover here towards the close. We'll look to see really if the Qs can start closing below this 275. I think we can get the crack. We're getting it right now. It fought so much there at the 275 early on in the day. Finally breaking down, coming back there towards resistance just to come back down, right? We'll see if we cut through that 275 and start going back into the 270s. If that happens, you can look for that SQQQ move to get back there towards resistance, probably closer towards that 55. Of course, when you're using leverage plays, just be careful. They do have a tendency of gapping around and having gaps. Those can be costly, especially the way that they're managed. Let's go towards one last one here. Coin right now, just kind of pulling back there. It did hold around the 47.98. We'll see if that can kind of hold there. Does it keep coming right back down? That's kind of what I expect. Don't expect too much lift here coming for these names. Like Mara tried to come back today. Got through the high around the 726. So we'll look to see if Bitcoin can stay strong. And that's going to be probably also based on the market, right? If the market can stay strong, I feel Bitcoin can. But, of course, this can always turn around. NVIDIA down big here towards the close. Not a good outlook here for your technology stocks, right? We don't want to see the technology stocks getting down there. Oh, man, I love to see old lines still getting respect. Yeah, it's always fun. NVIDIA now taking a hard downturn here towards the close. That's not what you want to see there, right? SOXS taking a nice little lift. This shows to me that at least towards the close, The bulls, if they were thinking the market was coming back in a day, it didn't happen today, right? We'll see what happens on Google that still has relative strength on the market right now. And AAPL, will that start breaking down? We'll have to wait and find out on Apple what happens tomorrow. ChargePoint and EV Go, dogs today. Yeah, I could see those being dogs. We'll see what happens. Netflix dumping right ahead of it. Ooh, ChargePoint definitely taking a hit there. EV Go taking a hit. Seems like these growth names, they've got a little bit of a bounce. You can just see it in ARKK. Do you see green here, team? Do you see green? Tesla down, Shop down, Square down, Roblox down, Zoom, Coin, Exact Scientist, Twilio, Unity, Hood, Path, Roku, TDoc, TXG. This one actually doesn't look too bad. I will tell you guys that. This one doesn't look too bad. But let's get out of that. TDoc, CRISPR down, DNA, Beam, NTLA, PD. Man, pretty much all the Kathy names down today. Don't see anything in the green. Got to be careful when that happens. Back to the Netflix as we wrap up here. Look at that downturn in Netflix as we're getting a hit already down to the 320s. Looks like somebody's jumping the gun. We'll have to wait what happens to the earnings. You guys can see that all right here on Benzinga. Don't go anywhere, team. We will have that stream starting up at 5. Just want to make sure that we have the redirect set already there. You guys can hang out. Talk about Netflix in the chat before we get started. We're going to get started at 5 p.m. Eastern. Earnings call is, of course, at 6 p.m. We'll get into the interview around 5:45. Talk all about the earnings and the growth drivers that are moving forward, Netflix. What is working for them? What is not? Find out that on 5 p.m. Up next, you guys got some Benzinga Cannabis Insider action. If you want to check it out, go ahead and check out our Benzinga Cannabis show. That's going to be Cannabis Insider coming up next. Kathy on a plane to Mexico. She should just be calling me and getting me on a plane, but we won't get into that. Stop the clock. EKS is right. Take a look, guys. Netflix moving all around there. We'll see what happens. Don't miss it, team. I'll give you guys the link here. You guys can check it out. I want to see you guys there, of course, at our stream. We'll see you guys in a little bit. I'll throw up the link here so you guys don't miss out on it. And who knows? Maybe Netflix gets a little bit of a push. Find out, team. We'll see what happens tonight, 5 p.m. Don't miss it.